Welcome to How to Create a Research Poster Tips and Techniques. My name is Dr. Corinne Hinton, and my presentation today will describe the research poster genre and things you need to create an effective poster that showcases your findings. There are three primary criteria you need to fulfill in order to create an effective research poster. Firstly, you'll need an effective organizational strategy. Secondly, you'll need a design that is attractive to viewers. And finally, you'll need to have all of your required research information to display. Let's talk first about the organization of your poster. Recognize that a research poster showcases only the essential details of your research. After all, even the largest of posters cannot accommodate all of the text from a 10-page essay. So avoid using too much text. Viewers likely won't have the time or the patience to read large blocks of text. Instead, use sequential or bulleted lists when appropriate to help improve the accessibility of the information you want to share. Use other document design features such as columns or text boxes. Such organization is not only attractive, it's useful for fitting textual information in compartmentalized chunks that your viewer can easily read and understand. If you decide to use a column format, be sure your audience knows how to follow the progression of your text. You can accomplish this by using borders around sections, clearly outlining section headings, or using color or other indicators to tell your viewers' eyes where to go. Because research posters embody a blending of textual and visual information, graphics like tables, charts, maps, illustrations, or photographs are common. However, these graphics should tell a clear, short story to the viewer. Avoid complicated or overloaded tables or graphs that attempt to show the viewer too many details. Many of the details I discussed on the previous slide are designed to improve the accessibility of your information and improve your poster's attractiveness. If all of your information is great, why does the design of your poster even matter? Well, human beings respond naturally by giving their attention to things they see as pleasing. And having a pleasing, eye-catching poster isn't rocket science. There are some basic tips you can follow. First, choose your font size and style carefully. Be sure a viewer can read the font from 4 to 6 feet away from the poster. That means keeping font size at a 14 pitch or larger in most cases. Also, be careful about the style of font you choose. More ornate font styles like those in script or with embellishments may look cool, but the human eye has to slow down to read them, and viewers may not want to spend that kind of time. Instead, focus on simple, classic fonts that viewers are used to reading. Second, avoid having too many images. Graphics like charts, tables, graphs, or pictures weigh more to the human eye than text does. So when we look at our document, our eyes naturally head to the pictures first. If you have a lot of pictures, the eye isn't sure where to settle itself. Use graphics purposefully and occasionally. Third, don't overload your viewer with too many colors. Color will certainly enhance the attractiveness of your poster, but like images, too much of a good thing can go terribly wrong. Choose 2 or 3 color combinations at most and use a basic color wheel to help you locate contrasting or complementary colors. Finally, avoid gimmicky, unoriginal clip art. Again, graphics, including pictures, should be used to help send a message to your viewer. Boring clip art says that you're unoriginal. Symbols that require a lot of thought to translate may work against you. Prioritize your images in terms of those that are clear and relevant. Okay, we've gone over how to organize your poster and improve its attractiveness so it lures in viewers. Once you've lured them in, however, you need to showcase the information most valuable to them in order to avoid wasting their time. For most inquiry-driven research, a research poster includes 6 primary sections plus your references or works cited. If you've already written an essay about your research, then much of the information for each of these sections can be adapted from the essay. Notice that I said adapted and not copied. You cannot simply print your paper, cut it up into pieces, and glue it to a poster board. An effective research poster takes time, just like your essay took time to complete. Each of these 6 sections should be labeled clearly for your viewer. For example, if I'm looking specifically for your methods section, I should be able to find it in less than 3 seconds on your poster. This is where a contrasting color or larger font size might come in handy. Your introduction or problem statement section helps establish context for your viewer. Imagine that he or she has no clue what you've researched or why. That's the role the introduction plays. It announces your subject, discusses what problem you're attempting to solve, or highlights a gap in the knowledge about the subject, and may even consider what might happen if we don't explore the subject. Remember, your viewer may not even know that what you've identified as a problem is a problem. Your introductory section is an opportunity to convince them. Your literature review section is important because it firmly anchors your research findings within the conversation of your subject. For example, if your research is about the causes of veteran homelessness in Texas, your literature review should highlight any major findings or evidence from prior research conducted in this area. That way, your reader has all of the most important preliminary information about the subject and knows how your research will contribute to this conversation. Be careful not to overload your viewer in the research poster with your lit review. In research posters, literature reviews are concise and focus on just the most critical scholarship or evidence available. After all, the viewer came to see what kind of unique contribution you're making, so that's where your focus should be. Your research questions section should be precise. Introduce your research questions with a brief statement and then showcase the actual question or questions you attempted to answer. That's it. Your methods section is another chance where your text might try to get away from you. Scholars are very interested in how you attempted to locate the answers to your research questions. Did you launch a survey or a questionnaire? Did you interview people? Did you perform an exhaustive search of the existing literature? Did you perform a textual analysis of a primary source, like a book, a document, a speech, or a film? Once you employed your methods, how did you analyze your data? This section outlines the step-by-step approach you took, including how you located your data, gathered your data, and analyzed your data. Here, sequential or bulleted lists might serve beneficial. Your results section is by and large the most interesting section for your viewer. If your research findings are contributing new knowledge, then that's what they want to know. This is your opportunity to showcase what you've discovered, so be sure to use your document design features like headings, color, font choices, lists, bolding, or italics to help the viewer see exactly what you've learned. Finally, your last section might have a couple of subsections. Typically, the last section is called the discussion section, but you might also include conclusions that you've reached about your subject or problem, offer ideas for what kinds of future research could be conducted on the subject so we can learn even more, or what kinds of new questions popped up because of what you learned. Now I'd like to show you some student samples of research posters. Neither of these is perfect, but they both provide some good exemplars by which you might compare your own work. I'll point out the effective and less effective parts of each. In this first poster, the first thing that stands out is the large title. This is good. Immediately as a viewer, I can see exactly what the student was attempting to study, the effective exercise on academic success. This student also chose to incorporate an abstract below the title, which is fine. In many cases, a viewer may not have a lot of time to spend looking at your poster, and your abstract gives him or her just the highlights. This poster contains 3 primary sections. In the middle section, Outcomes of Exercise, the student covers the major findings from the lit review she conducted and broke them out into discernible categories using color and bullets. The drawbacks to this poster include the weird image next to the title. It doesn't necessarily speak to the seriousness of the student. Perhaps she meant it to be humorous, but an actual photo of someone exercising would have been equally as attractive and set a more serious and professional tone. Secondly, this poster is very text-heavy. Even with the bulleted lists in the middle section, all I see is lots of text. Some graphics or even breaking up the introduction and conclusion sections into micro-paragraphs may have helped embed some white space to break up that text. And finally, the biggest flaw here is that the student didn't include a references section. That's a no-no. Don't do that. This second student sample is more dynamic than the first one. We have some complementary colors, 8 very clear sections with their own headings, and it's generally attractive. I also dig that realism of the graphic and the zombie-like font for the title. And of course we have a references section present, so the student has accounted for all of the major sections. However, there are also some issues with this poster. This really borders on color overload. In all, this poster has something like 10 colors, black, white, 3 or 4 shades of purple depending on your own sense of color, green, blue, and teal. That's a lot. Likely this student used a pre-formed template to create her poster, which isn't a terrible idea to start, but you need to think about how to modify that template so you can achieve balance in your design. This student's poster could have achieved the same kind of attractiveness and kept the design effective with a 4-color palette of black, white, green, and purple. Also, the font choices are both effective and ineffective. I like the contrasting fonts between the section headers and what's in the body. However, some of the sections include really large font size, like the problem statement and research questions. Others, like the introduction, have a font size that's a bit too difficult to read. I would recommend the student combine the first two sections, cut out some of the unnecessary text, and regulate the font size across all of the sections for consistency. Last but not least, don't forget that references or works cited section that helps establish your credibility. If you've consulted with other works, and especially if you've mentioned them in your lit review or anywhere else on your poster, list them in the references section if you're using APA, or works cited section if you're using MLA. That goes for any borrowed images as well. Remember, designing an effective, informative, attractive research poster can take some time, so be sure to give yourself plenty when designing yours. Show your poster to a person or two to get an outside perspective and opinion. If you take the time and make effective choices, then you'll have a product you can be proud of in the end.